Hey everyone, welcome to the next video. So this is kind of where we ended off. We got his hand posed in the last video, got things kind of more in line with the concept. I'm just going to alt tab over to my concept quickly and take a look, and we can see what we can do next. So in this video, I think the goal is to do a little bit of refining of some of the proportions on his face. We'll just take a few seconds to do that. And then we need to make the camera and make the skateboard and the base. So it's a lot to get done, so we're going to dive right into Zbrush. And the first thing I've noticed that his nose doesn't really match our concept, so I'm going to grab my snake hook brush, and I have symmetry turned on, and its posable symmetry is activated, so we still have access to both sides of our model. Because it's a clean topology, we're just going to grab this nose and kind of make that jut out a little bit more, and then kind of push down. And I think that was the biggest thing that was kind of I couldn't see was different. I've actually taken a couple of days to do some other videos, so it's been a little bit since I've looked at this character, and I think that's really beneficial sometimes for an artist to just step away. So you get a little bit too invested and you start to go blind to the quality of your work, and it's just really valuable to, I think, step back, take some time away from it, try something else, and then come back to this character. So I'm just going to refine his chin a little bit, make that a little bit sharper using the H polish and the Damien standard brushes to kind of pull those details, and then the smooth brush just smooth those back. Going to run the Damien standard, holding Alt to come out, and then just run that along the bottom lip. I apologize if you hear my screaming children. This is going to be a common thing in my videos. They just, they scream. So I'm working on it. We're trying real hard to deal with it, but that's just what kids do sometimes. And so if you have kids that don't scream, just hold them so close. Just be so grateful for that. I don't have that. I don't know why I'm adding this angry wrinkle crease right here. Let's do an H polish and kind of get us some sharper edges on that nose, and then turn off solo mode and see where things are at. I like that a lot better, actually. It's looking a lot better. Turning on my 24 focal length, give us some perspective on our character a little bit. Getting kind of a weird little ridge on his jacket. If I'm alt left clicking over to that subtool, I'm just running H polish to kind of get rid of some of this weird ridge that I've got going on. Okay, so he's got the little dual slits in the back of his suit coat here. Cleaning up that little wobble. Just kind of gradually cleaning stuff up a little bit. Okay, and I think most pants have that, that crease that kind of alt left clicking over to the pants and just kind of running this. I'm going to subdue that a little bit. Drop my intensity down to 16 and hold Alt with the Damien standard to kind of pull that out. A little interesting crease, and maybe adding some to the backs of his knees. If you guys are interested, I just premiered my making of a Minecraft snowman video, so it's a much simpler video. I definitely consider this video that I'm working on currently to be a more advanced ZBrush tutorial, just making a full-bodied character. But if you want to learn a more simple kind of character, you can head over to that, and I think I build that guy in a couple of hours, so it's, as opposed to 6 or 7 videos, it's much shorter in length, and it goes through all the basics and everything too. So just a thought. Trying to upload videos twice a week or so. Just making random things, having fun with it. Still trying to clean up the back of these legs here. I'm getting sidetracked. Okay, so I think that's good for now. I'm going to start making this, let's start making the skateboard. So I need a base to start with, so what I'm going to do is actually, I'm going to append a cube, start there. And then I'm going to move that cube down to his feet. Give him something to stand on. Scale it in the z-axis. And then hit P to turn off my perspective mode for now. And I'm going to delete everything below these faces. So Control-Shift left-click and drag a mask selection, not a mask, but a visibility. Just so we're hiding everything except for those top faces. And now we can go to Geometry, and then down to Modify Topology and Delete Hidden. So now if I Control-Shift left-click and tap, nothing else is going to show up because it's gone for good. And I think the first things first, we need to figure out exactly the style of skateboard would probably be helpful, and then check out some reference on that. But I think I have a decent idea of the kind of board that he rides. These boosted boards, they're discontinued, but they have kind of an interesting little shape to them. So here's what we'll do. We're gonna first things first run a Z-remesh on those. We'll just leave it at 5 for now and hit Z-remesh. And now it's giving us more polygons to work with. And I'm just going to, let's try a different, let's go to transform and change our symmetry axis to Z instead. So now we're going across like so. And then I'm going to hold Control for my mask and switch it over to the mask lasso. And then draw out a shape like this. And then on the back here, I'm going to draw out a shape like this. And then I'm going to hit Control W to polygroup that mask. And then Control-Shift left-click tap on the inside polygroup. Come to Polygroups and go to Delete Hidden. And then I don't like these little jagged edges, so I'm going to go to my edge loops and then run a group loops on those. I'm actually do that a few times. And then I'm going to rerun a Z-remesh as well at the 5 target poly count and just see what that gives me. And that's not bad. We'll run it again, click Z-remesh again because we're getting some weird edges. Man alive, it's just not doing a very good job. Let's leave it at what it was instead of running a Z-remesh. We'll undo and go back. And now we need to add the curvature, the concavity of the board, if you will. I skateboarded for a lot of years, so I'm familiar kind of with the vernacular on these guys. So I'm just moving using the snake hook brush, kind of adding some curvature to the board, giving it a little bit of a tail, and then some concavity here on the edges, and just scaling the size of my brush out. And I've never ridden these boards, so I'm not totally sure how intense these guys are. I think they're pretty flat. Hitting Control W just to make sure that all my groups are getting some weird edges here, but if you hit Shift F, you don't really see that stuff. Let's do a Z-remesh now and just see what it does. For some reason it did a little bit better this time. Let's switch it down to a 2 target poly count and run a Z-remesh. And then we'll come back up to edge loop and run a group loop. So it's going to kind of smooth our shapes out a little bit. Now I'm just shift smoothing everything. Come down to display properties, make sure it's double-sided so we're seeing both sides. Okay, so we obviously can't print this board right now as is, so we're going to need to give it some thickness. And there's a few ways we can do that. First thing I would try is probably Subtool, go to Subtool, go down to Extract. Drop this down to 0.055-ish. 0.005-ish, that is. 6 or so works, whatever. Hit Extract, click OK, and that's fine by me. Hit Accept, and now our board has some thickness to it. But I'm not too happy with this thickness, so I want it to be thicker even. And you can Control-Shift left-click tap on that green poly group, and then turn Shift off with the poly frame. Control left-click and drag a mask around that, and then Control-Shift left-click tap to bring everything back. So now all we've done effectively is just mask that upper poly group. Okay, and that's the only one that's masked. We're going to invert the selection by Control left-click tapping. And then from here, I'm going to reset moving over to my Move tool, just clicking the button up there, resetting, going to Unmask Center, and then I'm going to drag up in the Y direction to give it added thickness. Okay. And then I'm going to scale, oops, I was rotating. I'm going to scale the size of this guy in just a little bit. I don't want it to be so big. And then scale it down to the bottom of his feet. And the reason this other board is showing up is because when we did that extract, it made a separate subtool. So let's just go ahead and delete this one. We don't need this guy anymore. Just click OK. And now we're back to just our primary deck here. The top, the wooden part of the board is called the deck, by the way. And like I said, I think this is the shape of these things. I've never used them. Turning off symmetry, just moving that into place. And you typically want your back foot towards the back on the tail of the board, and then, you know, your lead foot kind of rests over the front wheels, the front trucks. Okay, so I still have my symmetry on. I'm going to bring the tail up just a little bit, and then I'm going to come back here for reference, and let's see what kind of reference we have for the boards here. I guess I'm way off. That shape is kind of, I guess, more the shape that we're going for, and we're pretty close to that. It's definitely a lot skinnier. Kind of really dig this board right here that he's riding on, so maybe we'll try to go for this shape. Actually, I think I like this one better. So we're gonna Alt tab back over to our ZBrush here. I apologize if you can hear my little yappy poodle. We just got this poodle. Her name is Bella, as in Bellatrix, and my wife is a major Harry Potter fan. So okay, so I'm gonna just continue to. I'm gonna turn on solo mode. Symmetry is on. I'm gonna squash this guy in a little bit. Maybe do a smooth here, a little bit of a smooth. Squash this guy in. Okay, and we're taking too much time on this, so I gotta just move on. Gotta move on. Let's start by making us a wheel. So we just need to make one wheel. Let's append a cylinder. Come over here to the cylinder, and then rotate this guy. Let's make sure the solo is turned off, and then shift left click on that eye to turn everything off except for we want our board visible. I'm going to rotate by selecting this red circle on my transform gizmo and hold shift to have it snap into the different axes. So it's right now at 90 degrees, as you see the little 90 down there. So now we rotated. This is always a little bit wonky, this scaling with this cube. Sometimes it gets pretty weird. Okay, so let's get this guy into place. And the wheels are pretty big. That's one of the kind of the staples of these boards, I think. So we'll get that into place. And then we just, like I said, we just have to make the one wheel look right. So we want to add the bearings to the inside of this. And the way we're going to do this is just do a simple Z modeler. So if you come over here to your brushes and go down to Z modeler, I think we did a little bit of this on the sunglasses. I apologize, like I stepped away from this for a while, so I forget what I've actually taught you in these videos. But with Z modeler turned on, if you mouse over the edges, you can see it turns white. If I hold spacebar and do an insert single edge loop, we can get that guy into place. Maybe not. Okay, there we go. If I clicked up here, it did a different operation than if I clicked down here. That's interesting. So make sure you're moused up here, scale your loop in, and we're going to kind of just, like I said, we're creating the bearing for this guy. And let's do the same on the other side. Okay. And then I want to polygroup this inner poly loop right here. So go to polygroup, it's set to poly loop by default. If I click on that edge, it's going to create its own color for that polygroup. And then if I control shift left click tap on that inside vertice, we now have these guys as their own polygroup. So I'm going to come down to display properties and make it double-sided. I wish the ZBrush, for the life of me, would just make that the default. You can hear the angst in my voice because it drives me crazy that they haven't done that yet. I'm going to control shift left click tap, and now we've got that inner control tap to invert the selection. And then we're going to just scale this, guys. Make sure that your pivot is centered. So go to unmask center and then scale that bearing in just a little bit, okay? And then I'm going to crease my edges so that when we subdivide, things are going to kind of maintain. All right, so add an edge loop here, because if I hit Control D, things get real mushy right there. And I actually kind of like this curved edge, so we're going to maintain that, I think. But I'm going to crease right here and right here because I want this to maintain. Oops. And then I'm going to re-polygroup this inner loop. Oops. Switch back to polygroup, hit Control W to re-polygroup everything to a different color, and then re-polygroup that loop right there. And then I'm going to use Q Mesh, mousing over the face. So extrude, or you can use Q Mesh. It does kind of the same thing, but a little bit differently. I'm going to use extrude. I think it's safer. So grab that face and then just pull outwards a little bit. And then we're going to go back to Insert Poly Loop and then recrease that loop. Okay, so when we subdivide, it's going to maintain that. Okay, so now I'm going to hit, actually let's slide this loop. So what you can do is this fun thing called slide. So if you mouse on the edge and you can go to slide, edge loop complete is the target. If I mouse over that edge and make sure it's white, I can slide that loop along, which is awesome. Do the same in here. And then I'm going to hit Control W, okay? So now it's looking definitely more like a wheel shape. And then I'm going to delete lower, hit Shift F, and then I'm going to mouse over that vert for now. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert, if you come over here to, I think it's this one. Let's do this guy for now. And then if you come up here to the top, you can scroll over. I like the bolt head one. We could actually do, it would be more of a nut, but let's just do the nut for now. And then if you mouse over that vert, you see that little red dot, and then if I click and drag, I can drag this nut out just like that. And then it might be better actually just to run one of these guys. Let's undo that and just try crown, nut, and bolt. So we clicked on that guy, and then if I run on that like so, it doesn't make a difference. We'll just do the bolt head for now. That's the details. So we'll do that, and that looks great. That's going to be the bolt. We'll make it a little bit bigger just to accentuate the details so it shows in the print. And now I'm going to come over to Insert Mesh Primitive, and I'm going to grab a cylinder, and then mouse over that vert, and then drag a cylinder in there. And now that it's the isolated poly group, I can move this guy with my move tool and kind of slide that guy in a little bit. And we've got our wheel. It's magical. I'm going to scale this guy up. I want it to be more stylized, so let's make sure that we turn on off our perspective mode and kind of scale this guy out. And then come over to Modify Topology and do a mirror and weld on X, and then change it to Z and do another mirror and weld. So now we've got our board wheels. Even though that mirror on X didn't work super well, we can come over here and just mask these guys, invert our mask, and then reset, unmask center, unlock, reset our pivot, relock, and then move these guys into place. Okay, so now we've got our wheels, and we're missing a key component now. And bonus points if you know what that's called. If you know what that's called, leave it in the comments below. But I'm going to tell you anyway. They're called the trucks. And so I think the way that we're going to do that is we're actually just going to append a cylinder, another cylinder. We love our cylinders here at Kick Punched. I'm going to click the red circle and then hold shift and rotate it 90 degrees. 90 degrees. Okay. And then I'm going to scale it in yellow, and the yellow thing, scale everything in. And then on the green square, scale it out. And then just get this guy into place for one of the trucks. And we want to keep it pretty inflated just for durability's sakes, okay? You could get super crazy with this. Make sure that your wheels are turned on so you know where you're putting things. You could make it actually roll if you wanted to get that crazy, but I don't want to get that crazy. I'm going to hold Control and then drag out the actual truck, part of the trucks that connect to the board here, and those kind of jut out just a little bit like so. Scale this in the green. Just kind of shape this guy like I need, like I want. And that is looking more like a truck. And then if you want to get crazy, you can add the same, nuts and bolts that you want to that vertice. I'll grab a cylinder, and then, whoops. Yeah, it's a little bit off center, but I'm okay with it. I'm just gonna eyeball these things for now. And yeah, so I'm pretty happy with this for now, but let's do this. Let's run a Dynamesh. We'll make sure that we are doing our due diligence here. Turn on groups and run a Dynamesh. It's really low res, so we gotta go higher. We'll do a 5, oops, turn groups back on, do a 7, and then we'll just isolate these trucks a little bit. And one thing I'm going to do is turn off my X symmetry and turn on Z symmetry, so I'm only doing half the work here, and just kind of run a smooth. And then I'm going to control mask pen, just drag a little rectangle right there, and then I'm going to deflate this a little bit. I'm getting nitpicky because I'm like I said, I used to skate, so I'm trying to make these things work right. So we got to make the base of the trucks. Now reset my pivot, unlock, reset, relock, and then scale this guy out. And typically these are a square shape. So turn off my perspective mode here for a second. Actually, I was in that, and now I'm not. And one thing you can do to resymmetrize, I think I might have covered this already. Let's come over here to mirror and do a mirror and just mirror, actually in the wrong spot. So in geometry, modify topology, mirror and weld. This weld mesh is partially hidden. Oh, I've got the nuts and bolts hidden. So mirror and weld on X, okay? And then let's also do on Z. And that's gonna resymmetrize things for us a little bit so things are ready to rock. If I control left click, drag a mask, invert that and get this guy into place, that'll be helpful. And then I think we're good to go here for now. Let's run a Dynamesh, and we'll come up here. Actually, just because I'm nuts, I'm gonna square this out like real trucks, because I don't want my fellow board flippers to just hate my guts. Can't see this one very well, but we'll come to the side. Just try that. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Just square this out, re-dynameshing, and then we'll do another mirror and weld, actually on X and Z, and then move that guy back into place like we did before. Reset our pivots, and then push that guy right where it needs to be. Awesome. Okay, so now we've got the board pretty much done. I'm happy with this. All right, so we're gonna come up here, and I'm gonna be real nitpicky because, like I said, just gotta do it. Come back here to the insert mesh parts, and then we'll grab this Phillips type 01 screw thing, and then we'll drag this guy in. And these are flat screws. You don't actually feel those. They're intentionally flat. You're not gonna see these in the print, but this is just me being nuts. Reset my pivot, and then there's 4 of these screws here. Okay, control shift left click tap, mask these guys, invert our mask, and then we will control left click on the arrows and drag those guys into place. And they didn't show up because the tail of the board kind of pops up a little bit, and then we'll rotate those and get them there. Get them where they need to be. Yeah. Actually, scale those up so they'll actually show up a little bit maybe. Oops. Sometimes you grab the white circle and that's no good. That's like using the perspective of the camera. You want to make sure you're grabbing that blue circle for this particular operation. So now he's got the 4 screws. Yay, cool. So now that is a legitimate board. Awesome. Okay, so let's do a save as, and let's version up our project to version 6. And I know that you have the save next button, but that just breaks for me more often than not. So because I'm switching between transpose and master frequently, so I'm not a fan. Anyway, so let's turn everything on and see how things are looking. You got the board there. Cool. So now we are missing the camera. So let's bang the camera out, and we'll do that at the origin too. This board, I think we're gonna merge everything down. So let's just hit Control W on all of these subtools. So if we wanna split them up again, we can. And then we'll just merge them all down. Merge down. And then we're gonna rename this to board. Okay. So there's our skateboard. Again, hitting save just to be safe. And we're gonna start, you guessed it, with another cylinder. That is my go-to, baby. Gonna Control D, subdivide this cylinder several times up to 5 subdivision levels, just to round those edges. And, hitting P to switch to orthographic view. I'm gonna Control left click a rectangle right up here, up top here, and then Control left click tap to invert that selection. And then I'm just gonna scale it in, I think. Reset my pivot, scale it in, and then I'm gonna drop it in like this. Okay, so this is our lens. And I know we're seeing these awkward little ridges based on our topology, but you're not going to see those at scale, so don't fret, don't worry about those. Maybe add some other details here, like these lenses have these little grooves in them, so they can, so you can rotate them and adjust your focus and whatnot. So we'll add that there. And then I'm gonna append I'm gonna turn everything else off so we're not confused. Append another cylinder and make that like the smaller, make visible my top one and make that like the contact point, okay? And then let's go ahead and append a cube this time. Big surprises, we did not append a cylinder. It's a miracle. And the cube is gonna be the body of the camera, so we're gonna scale this in Y and then scale this in the X direction as well. Hit Control D to round out those edges nicely. Hit 2 or 3 times, delete lower, and then right here, I'm gonna come over here with my mask pen and then just invert my selection. Actually, first, let's run a Dynamesh. Let's do that first. Let's bump it to 700, 600, and let that cook. For some reason, that is taking a long time. This is, oh, whoops. It's because our model's so large. So we'll leave it at 128. Your Dynamesh number here is scale dependent, so depending on how big your model is overall is how many poly counts it's gonna get. It's kind of a weird thing, but it is what it is. So I've masked that little area and I'm gonna pull this out to give it some shape. Just scaling again, re-Dynameshing, cool, and awesome. And now let's add like the flash area. Just pop that guy up. Reset our pivot here, scale that in. And then we want to add like a viewer maybe. And like I said, we're not going to push this one too hard. So we got the front 2 with that masking, just remember that. And then let's do for this one, we'll just do a deformation and then do an inflate. I'll pop that viewer out. Okay. Smoothing. And again, just remember to accentuate those details a little bit just so that they show up. I'm gonna go to my insert mesh primitives and for a little selector wheel type thing, draw a cylinder and then squash that in Y. And then I'm gonna hold Control and maybe add like a little button here. Okay. So now we've got a little control mechanism thing, and then let's add our. Let's actually drag this guy out a little bit further. So I'm just gonna mask that and then reset my pivot, reset everything, relock, and then drag that out just a little bit more. And then turn on solo, come in here and clean this guy up a little bit. And then right here, I'm gonna use this. I'm not sure if I've used this in the series. You have a clip curve. It's an awesome brush. You can hold Control, Shift, left click, and then drag a line, and it'll sort of slice that downward like so. And then we need to find a button for the snap here. And I think we can find a good button maybe in this machine parts, maybe not. Yeah, something like that would probably work, maybe. Let's just use this recessed dial thing. And we'll use that for now. And maybe if we come over here to our, not parts, let's go to this one. Nope, not this one, sorry. In IMM model kit, this one has 120 different models in it, so it takes a second to load. Maybe this button here. This one is one of my favorites, I love this one. So if I click on that vert, it'll make it more of like a button kind of feel. And okay. So now we've pretty much got our camera made. And let's merge everything down. Control W to polygroup, Control W to polygroup. Merge these guys down into one. Okay. And it's looking kind of like a camera. Cool. Hit Shift F and let's take a look at things. Kids are freaking out. I love it. So I'm just going to move this lens over just slightly. Get that into place. Maybe make it bigger. Longer, that is. Longer lens. And that's awesome. That's our camera. Okay. So I think it's looking like a camera. That's good for now. Okay, so let's make sure that our pivot is centered on the camera, and then turn off solo mode, turn everything else visibility on by holding shift and left clicking the eye. And we're so huge that everything's hidden. Let's come over here and rotate our camera 90. Rotate our camera and get that guy into place. Okay. Keep it nice and big. I think we need to make his arm longer. I think that's going to help things. Sorry, my kids were getting rambunctious. I had to go holler at them. So I think I'm on the body right now. If I grab my snake hook and scale it up, whoops, turn off symmetry. Just make sure you're grabbing that. And if you wanted to make sure you're just grabbing that arm, we still have our polygroups. We can isolate that, or we can just mask his arm. And then come over here to blur our mask a little bit. Just click on blur, 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 blur 3 or 4 times. Hit Shift F and then invert our mask. And then scoot his hand out a little bit, okay? I think that was an issue. So I'm just using the snake hook brush. I'm not going into transpose master or anything too crazy. Turn off solo mode and then alt left click on our sleeve here to get our sleeve in place. I just cleared the mask because we still had our tie mask on there, just to be safe. This one's being a little tricky. And then grab the sleeve of the suit and do the same thing. Honestly, it would have been easier just to switch over to transpose master, but I like to do things difficult sometimes. So just getting things into place, rotating around, and we've got some issues over here. Okay, cool. So now we can get that camera a little bit further back. Just move that back here over his hand. And then we need the, he's kind of has like a little GoPro type thing, but I don't know if I'm going to get that crazy with it. Probably just use like a cylinder. Let's do a curved tube. And then drag in, this is my, remember that outer red circle is going to be the diameter of the curved tube as you draw it. So picking the bottom of the camera and just drawing straight down is going to give us kind of like a little stick that he's holding onto, a selfie stick type thing. Switching back to snake hook and just pushing that guy into place. And then I think we've been making good progress here as far as time goes. So I'm thinking we'll probably go ahead and add our crown. I know you're super pumped about that. I'm going to add a little bit of detail here real quick though. One thing I'm going to do is hold Control Shift and switch over to my select mode. And then I'm going to use the select lasso. I'm going to select these top 3-4 edge loops, hit Control W, isolate those groups. And then I'm going to come over to Z Modeler. And I'm going to do an extrude polygroup all and push those in just a little bit. Just kind of make this little contact point a little more interesting. And it will add some fragility to the model once it's printed. So just keep that in mind. But I think it adds a little bit more interest to this deal that he's holding. It doesn't just look like a hot dog. So moving the handle into place a little bit better. So make sure you're rotating around your model frequently and just getting things proportionally looking nice. And then I'm using my Move Topological brush right now, so it's going to adhere to the topology of whatever the model is. But I'm still on the same subtool as you can see, so it's just like Oh, purple topology? Okay, then I'm not going to affect this topology. Love this brush. Okay, so that's looking good for now, I think. And, okay, what did I say? Oh, we're going to make a crown, okay. So we're going to do a crown. We're going to use loads of radial symmetry to do so. And first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at our concept to see what that crown is looking like. Okay, I think it's looking pretty cool. So I think you guys are going to be so surprised. I'm going to start with, you guessed it, nope, a sphere. I tricked you, not a cylinder this time. So Alt left click over to my sphere and let's take a look at it. Hit P, and then I'm going to Control Shift left click and choose Select Rect as my selection option. I'm going to delete these lower faces that I don't need. Make sure that you are in orthographic view for this. Okay, and then we'll come down here to Geometry, Modify Topology, Delete Hidden, and now we're going to play with radial symmetry. So if I come up here to Transform, switch it to Y and click on the little R, we have now activated radial symmetry, and we have, I think it's 8 points that it defaults to, radial count 8. So we're just going to crank that a little bit higher and switch to our standard brush and just start kind of sculpting and play around with this a little bit, get it into shape, get this kind of tapered out like a crown would be. Okay. And then we'll switch it back down to 8 here in a second. But first, let's just get it the right shape that we want. And then be sure to save. Just remember to save, because ZBrush can crash like anything. So saving this. And switching back to transform, go to, let's set it to 8 in our count. And then hit Control D on your keyboard 2 or 3 times and just give us some more poly counts to work with. So we're going to draw out this. What we're gonna do is draw out these interesting little metal things that wrap around. So first thing we're gonna do is drag out the base. So Control Shift left click a mask pen around your model. And which way was front? Okay, so this way. So let's just focus on drawing those little things that come out of the top. Those little metal things, okay? And just kind of practice, and you can follow along with me exactly, or you can kind of do what you want. Radial symmetry is really fun to kind of play with, so just have fun with it. Yeah, I mean, you could crank your radial count and get more complex with this if you'd like. I'm gonna keep it simple just so I can finish this this video and get things out. But just remember, Control Alt will invert your selection here. Okay. So now from here, I'm going to go to Subtool down at the very bottom where it says Extract. I'm going to hit Extract and then hit Accept. And maintaining my radial symmetry, I'm going to use the snake hook and kind of pull these guys out a little bit more. And then turn off solo mode so we can see how things are looking. But let's turn everything else off. Shift left click the eye down here, and then just left click the eye right here, so just our mask is visible. Okay. Let's just kind of try and get this guy into place. And it looks like we have an issue down here, which is fine. We'll just go to Control Shift and then click on the Clip Curve brush, and then just drag a line, Control Shift left click a line along the bottom there to clean that up, and then Alt left click over to this guy, clear your mask, and do the same down here to clean that guy up. Okay, and then we're going to need to give both of these thickness in a moment, but let's Alt left click back and clean this guy up a little. And I think I added these little spires too, so right now it's kind of looking like a like a baker's hat or something goofy. Just pulling this guy out again. You can even use like Damien standard if you wanted to kind of add some more details. You know, kind of push these in. You do some really fun things with radial symmetry. It makes your life so much easier in a lot of ways if you can figure it out. And everything has to be centered at the origin, but it's really valuable. So, okay, so now let's take a look at our concept and see things we can add. We had some like jewels and this little spire that shoots out the front of the, or maybe does it shoot out the center? Let's try that instead. Okay, so let's make sure this is in Dynamesh mode. So right now it's in a clean geo. So let's just click on, let's do a save first, just to be safe, and then do a Dynamesh. Let's crank our resolution to maybe double that, and then holding Control, we're gonna just drag a little circle, and then invert our selection. Come over here to move, and then center that pivot, and then we'll just like pull this guy up and out, and then re-Dynamesh. Okay, we'll do the same thing here. Shift F to turn off. Oops. Cancel that guy. Got my butterfingers. I'm always hitting these weird buttons. Okay. Oops. We have a problem. Houston, we have a problem. So when we did our mask here, let's undo this. That's annoying. We accidentally unmasked the bottom. So we're gonna just try and mask the bottom so we're not pulling that guy up too with it. So we're still okay. I think we're good now. And you could just do this. You could like grab like an insert cylinder and just you could start just dragging a cylinder out of that too, and it'll add kind of a better roundness to it. And then re-Dynamesh. And then I'm going to use the let's use the clay buildup brush and just kind of like start just doing fun things. So just adding detail. Control left click and just remember to re-Dynamesh. You can turn on polish too, and it'll clean up some of these interesting little edges that we're getting. You can up your resolution a little bit too to force something, and it'll give you more to work with. Sometimes it adds some weird artifacting when you do that, but I mean, just get kind of crazy with this and have fun with it. Okay, so let's pull out a point here. Maybe that's some kind of fancy jewel. And again, we still have maintained our 8 number transpose number, so we can still go through in detail. Maybe pop out some jewels in this guy, some fancy pants little jewels. Okay. And you could invert your selection and do like an inflate. Come down here to deformation and run like, you know, 15 inflate and see what that does if you'd like. And then clear your mask and then re-Dynamesh. It'll smooth things out. So now we've got some fun details going on here. You'd probably want to run some jewel type things. Like let's do some of these guys. And oops. Okay, invert selection and then do an inflate 15. Cool, re-Dynamesh. And now we've got a bunch of fun details going on with this crown. So Control W to Dynamesh everything together. Control W. Let's turn on, make sure. I think it's looking like a crown. I just don't want it to look like a baker's hat. That's the key here. And I have been pulling up some reference on my other monitor just so you guys are aware. I'm not just like, I'm not just pulling this right out of my keister, as my dad would say. My keister. So again, just using the clay buildup and just continuing to get obsessed with details and nitpicking things as artists do. Control W, merge down, and then let's hit save because we're happy with things as they are. And then turn everything, shift left click the eye here, and turn off our symmetry. And what you can do is you can always just duplicate this guy, because it's at the origin, and that's what we want if we're still working on it. But if we're not working on it, we're ready to move it into place, but we're a little bit unsure how things are going to look. Let's turn off this guy. You just always have a backup. So I'm a huge fan of always duplicating your subtools so that you always have kind of a backup going on. I like the idea of the crown kind of leaning to one side, leaning to the back or something. I don't know. I don't know if I like it. Maybe I do. These guys probably aren't thick enough to print very well, so they might not even print. Let's try to get his hair in a better place. We'll start there and try to do that and see if we can make this crown kind of fit a little bit better on his head. We haven't really pushed his hair a whole lot in this tutorial, so I think that's something that can definitely be improved on. So he's got kind of this like really curly rat's nest kind of hair in the back. And then using the Damien standard to carve in our details, going to crank our intensity back to 30-ish, 40. And then just try to add these fun little curls, you know, in the back of his hair. And little spirals, things that are going to look nice once we're printed. And then let's take a look at some reference too. I think that's let's do this first. We'll do an inflate and then a redynamesh. See what those things are doing. So I'm doing an inflate. Right now it's still kind of looking like a mess. And you can take more time on this, but you know my purpose with these videos is kind of more to teach and to instruct on the basic principles, and then you guys and gals can just take it to the next cool level. Okay, so now he's got some fun little darling curls. Another thing too we can do is we can go ahead over here to, let's do a curve. I think there's a curved strap somewhere. Curved strap snap. You could try this, and you can actually try running this along the hair and seeing, you know, maybe it'll do an interesting thing. It'll just kind of add some interesting details that you can smooth back and push into place and separate these things a little bit. And okay, and then do an inflate always, just to try and inflate the size of these so that they'll print okay. So this is just an idea of something that you could possibly do around the hair to try and get things looking a little more interesting. Strap. So just run this guy, and then snake hook them into place a little bit. So redynamesh, and then smoothing things out. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's helping a whole lot, but it's doing something. And then again, re-inflating, and then come in here and you can even carve some using the Damien standard brush. It's kind of a mess. Hair's hard, it really is. It's hard to get it looking right. But it's doing something. I mean, his hair is very confusing. If you look at the reference, he's got a lot of kind of extremely curly hair. So I guess we're trying to go for this kind of a look. So we might have to try these curls, or refine these curls a little bit more. Let's keep pushing that. So you can, the other thing you can do is the community has come out with some pretty incredible insert mesh brushes and things that you can just download, and there's curly hair out there that you can find that I found before. I'm trying to keep these tutorials, you know, vanilla Zbrush. I'm not trying to use things that I've downloaded or custom UI or things, because that's confusing to learn on. So I've intentionally not been using brushes that I've downloaded just so it's easier to teach. but you can find those out there. So again, I'm just using the Damien standard brush here, and then snake hook with turn on Sculptris Pro. Gonna have some fun with this little guy. These little guys. Oops. So just pushing these hairs out a little bit more, and then make sure that you're large enough that they're going to have a good amount of thickness for printing. I like to turn, you know, the Sculptris Pro on and off. Sometimes it's really beneficial, sometimes it's not so much. Going back to my inflate here, and inflate these guys out. And then back to my Damien standard. Just kind of try to run some stringy hairs kind of coming through. I picked about probably one of the hardest characters to do this tutorial on as far as his hair goes. So, smoothing things back, using H polish. Oops. Anyway, kind of getting there. I don't know, man. Don't like the shape of his head yet, just yet. Redynameshing. You know, this guy, smoothing that guy out a little bit. We're starting to see some polygonal faceting. There's a dog. So I don't know, what do you guys think? You think the crown's worth it, or is it kind of just making him look like a queen? A little feminizing. Is he a king or is he a queen right now? I don't know. Let's turn on our perspective and take a look. Maybe his crown is a little too big. Let's try scaling that down, and then using our pivot is maintained, so we can scale that in Y just fine. We're gonna see some stretching, but who cares, man? Make it look good. Okay. Fun. Let's hit save. And I think that's gonna be it for this video. This is it's a good length here. We're at 53 minutes for just this video, so that's getting long. Made some good progress though. Maybe in the next video I'll try to keep it under like 30 minutes, and we'll just do a broad refining of the character. Just kind of refine all these little details, and maybe do some transpose, and just kind of do our finishing touches, and then we will get all the subtools combined into one and run a shell and get everything ready for our printer. Okay, I'm going to be printing on the Saturn II from Elegoo. One thing I'm going to do is on these collars, I think I want this to be inflated out a little bit more before I close up. Let's do like an 8, too much. So go 4. Inflate these guys out just a little bit. Control D to subdivide those. And then use the pinch brush to pinch these little bits here in just a little. Okay. Okay, that's good for now. I think his shoes could probably be a little bit bigger. Yeah, I think that helps a lot, actually. Remember when I told you I was going to do the refining pass in the next video? Instead, I just started doing it in this video. That's a good one, huh? And we lost his cuffs, so let's scoop the cuffs up into place. With stylized characters, you can always push things, you know? You can always push the proportions and just kind of go ham with these proportions, get them a little bit crazier. Okay. I lost something there with the how small those ankles got. It was kind of fun. Ideally, you don't have to deal with the interior body geo that you're trying to like hide. You can just get rid of that stuff. And then, you know, when you're ready to redynamesh, everything will just be kind of sealed together. Right now, I'm just battling his inner geo, and it's kind of annoying. So we'll just make that skinnier. Okay. Alright, cool. Alright, so this is where I'm gonna end it. P. Let's go up on our subdivision level, see how our details are looking. On his body. Yeah, we made some good progress. So in the next video, we'll just do a little bit more refining. We'll get everything combined into a single subtool, get them shelled, and then run them through Chidu box and get supports and everything on our character so we can send them to our resin printer. So thanks for joining me, everybody. I hope you had having a wonderful holiday season, and please get involved in the comments. Let me know what I can do better, what things you would like to learn, and maybe give me some tidbits on things that you want to make next. You know, if you want me to be simpler or do something more complex, more detailed, happy to do it. So like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.